Hello there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Fierce Magic, conversations with passionate women sharing their fires. And I am so honored and overjoyed to be here with Alexandra Schueler today. She is a women's empowerment mentor. She is a writer, and she is the mama wolf of an incredible sacred temple of sisterhood, and it's called Wild Feminine Unleashed. I have had the great honor and pleasure to be a part of Wild Feminine Unleashed for more than 2 years now, and it has been transformational, life-changing for me, so incredibly deeply healing. And so I'm just so grateful to have you here, and I would love for you to just dive into telling us a little bit about the work you do, the sisterhood, and whatever's on your heart to share about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Amber. I'm so happy to be here. I host an online virtual temple space for women, and that was really born out of having some of my own experiences of in-person connection with women in a really defined sacred container. And when I say sacred, I mean like we were doing empowerment work. So it was very intentionally created. We were intentionally, and I wanted to bring that into the online sphere, that a lot of women, specifically the way that I was first experiencing that was by traveling to apprenticeship leadership program that I was doing. And it sort of dawned on me how that's so not accessible for every woman, because it requires traveling, it requires carving out a weekend every month, and then even just retreats that are various locations around the world. Travel that and carving that time out of schedule just isn't so feasible for everybody. So I had the vision to create that sort of space online. And when I was making it, I didn't really know how it would all pan out, and if the sort of energy could be emulated and created online. And it was very successful. And we've gathered hundreds and hundreds of women over the years in this space. And it's basically an intentionally gathered group of women in the virtual world to really explore what it means to be in sisterhood with other women. And with that, healing our own stories that we tell ourselves, healing trauma that we've been through. Mostly all of this is happening through just being witnessed by one another, and sharing our deepest, darkest, like shadowy parts of ourselves, and seeing how we can still be loved through all of that. So I facilitate that online space, and we gather twice a year in person to have the in-person time as well. And yeah, that's pretty much me and what I do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And then, the retreats, of course, are just like, whew, heart expanding. I've had the honor to be a part of several already, and we have another one coming up that I'm super excited for. But we'll come back to that, because I want to mention also that one of the ways I know that you really help that sorry, real life folks, my phone's doing weird things. It's telling me I have a meeting with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for real, it's true. But the weekly circle time, I absolutely love that, because you've found a way, like virtually through these online meetings weekly to emulate what feels to me like that gathering around a sacred fire kind of vibe. And so that's one thing I super duper love. And I want to explore a little bit more the conversation about the sisterhood wound, and anything you'd like to share about your experience with that, and how and why what you've created is really helping to heal that with the women you work with.
Yeah, totally. I love this so much, because it's really some of the core essence of what Wild Feminine Unleashed, and even just beyond Wild Feminine Unleashed, I think women gathering in this intentional way is really about. And I think that most women these days have what I've referred to as like the sisterhood wound, where we have been burned by other women in some way, and that hurt or trauma or painful experience that we had left an imprint where it started to tell us that women aren't safe, and we created a story based on that painful experience we went through, that it's not safe to act with other women, it's not safe to have female friendships, it's not safe to trust women, to let women in. I know personally, just to share my own experience with that, when I was in high school, a very dear girlfriend, and she was really my best friend at the time, and we'd been friends since like school, and she sort of adopted a bit of that queen bee mentality. And I walked in to one of the classrooms in high school in the earlier years of that period of my life, to her just like saying really terrible things about me to a group of all of my closest friends and our closest mutual friends. And it was, I hadn't done anything. I was like such a pure, like loving heart. I like worshiped her and adored her. And to walk in on her saying that stuff about me, it cut so deeply. After that, you know, I really gravitated to men, connecting with men as for friendships, and I had girlfriends, but there was this layer. I shut off my ability to be vulnerable with women really after that for a period of time. And it took immersing myself in circles like Wild Feminine Unleashed, where I was able to start healing that and learn that I can trust women again. And beautiful thing about, you know, like as with many wounds, it's like talking about it and being seen in it allows it to heal. And what is especially healing with sisterhood wounds, which again, I think that just how society is presently, there's so much competition inherent in how women relate, because it's like, you need to look this way, you need to feel, you need to be this way. And so when we see a woman who is all the things that we think we should be, but we don't feel like, oh, I got to compete with her, or I'm jealous of her, or cut her down in some way to make my feel better. And instead, in these intentional spaces where we're cultivating hood connection, it's like we can share these stories and be held with that pure unconditional love, and heal the like, okay, I can trust women. It is safe for me to do this, because we're all there with the same intent of healing these things and finding wholeness in how we relate to women again. It's like the salve is sisterhood, and for the wound that came from something similar, but it was unconscious relating. So that's a big part of what we're doing in there. And it's been just so humbling to hear women's stories in the group, being shared of the abuse that they've endured from other women, the painful things they've gone through, the trauma, the betrayals, and witnessing the step-by-step process so many women have gone through, getting back to that place of oh, it's safe for me to have females again. It's safe for me to connect with women. It's safe for, like, you know, getting to go to the retreat and be like, the last time I was with a group of women like this, I was like, you know, so betrayed. So it's really, really magical.
Yeah. Oh, and I can totally attest to that. I know that for me, when you first began Wild Feminine Unleashed, and I've had the honor of being in it since the beginning, there was something there that I needed so desperately that I didn't even know that I needed until I experienced it. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, this, what true sisterhood is all about, because I really feel our culture like sets like, there's so many ideas, there's so much dogma around the idea that like women are catty and competitive and all of that stuff. And what you have created with Wild Feminine Unleashed and the culture you have created really changes that. Like, it really shows us a different way, which is so powerful. And I love that the way that you have because it's offered virtually and online, like people anywhere can join. I mean, I know we've got people like in England and Australia and Malaysia and, you know, things like that. That's so huge. But then the way that you anchor it in with the in-person gatherings too is just amazing. So I would love to, there's so much I could say, I could go on and on, but I would love to hear from you a little bit more about this, having the virtual space and having the retreats, and like how and why they both work so well together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this isn't a new model of what I've created in terms of like having community spaces online. However, I've never quite seen this where there is a community online where an intentionally gathered group of people around like whatever the idea is that's gathering the people together, where you then get to go and meet, and it's like an ongoing thing. Whereas there's like plenty of online apprenticeships that you can do, or programs that are like 9 months, say, or 6 months or 3 months, and maybe there's a retreat involved. And so you get to meet, but it ends after that period of time. This is ongoing. There is no end date in sight for Wild Unleashed. So the beauty of it is that it's this inflowing experience that women can choose to be a part of. And what's beautiful about our group is that many of the women have been there beginning or since very early on. So there's like, once a woman's in and she really like sinks her teeth into it and she's like really involved, it's like there's really not so much like leaving because it's hard to just like depart from how juicy it is in there. But so the magic of getting together in person, there isn't this stop point of like many other retreats, you know, you attend and maybe you continue some connections after the fact, like drop in with 1 or 2 and you're like, oh, you're like, we're going to stay in touch. But we are able to come to these retreats knowing one another's backstory, because we have the day in and day out connection in the on group in our weekly calls. So we know each other's story, know what's happening for everyone. So so then when we meet in person, it's like, we just get to get into that. There isn't the like getting to know each other. There's the maybe like, hey, that's her Facebook profile photo. Like, yeah, that's her. A little bit of like that, getting used to one another. But ultimately, like, we know one another's stories, so we can just go deeper from there. There isn't the like catch up, you know, where do you come from? Where do you live? Any of that. It's like, and then we get to take what we've done in person and just bring online and go deeper. And it's like solidifies of what we're doing online in person. So it's just seamless. There isn't this break point or like a lapse in time that allows us to miss out on anything together. It's just like, okay, we leave the retreat and literally like an hour later, it's like, I miss you already. You know, like it's all just like so woven. And yeah, I haven't seen anything like that before, where it is just this continual ongoing community thing where we can meet in person and then seamlessly transition back to online and vice versa. So that's really like part of, I think, what makes retreats that much more magical is just that when we do meet in person, it's like there isn't that preliminary getting to know one another. And there's, you know, every retreat and every experience has its place and they're all beautiful. And I personally like just really love the way that we're doing this.
Oh, I totally love it too. I know the first retreat that we did together, I've had the honor of making food, you know, being the chef for the retreats that Ali does, which is like one of my favorite things in life. I love it so much. But when we first did our first retreat, and it's, you know, continued to be this way, but watching each woman come in, and like some of them you immediately recognize because they have a picture on Facebook, or they post pictures of them that it's like you couldn't possibly miss them. Like you could see them anywhere and you're like, I know that person. And then, you know, some of them it's like, yeah, who is that? But then as soon as you identify, it felt so much more like a coming home experience, like to be able to have gotten to know these women in the group and then to get to meet them at a deeper level. It's it truly is unique. And I've been to a lot of retreats. So I was going to say spiritual retreats, but different, you know, types of retreats. And And it's never anything like that. It's, you know, it's like almost indescribable, really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear you in that. I love that you felt that way, because that's how I felt with it too. And when I referenced earlier in our conversation how I did this apprenticeship program, and it was with 30 other women, and it was 2 years, and we met every weekend for almost 2 years. And I had this very visceral experience, like almost deja vu, sort of how it feels in your body when you get, it's like, oh my God, like I've been here before, I've done this before, what is going on? Thing just like stir. I had that feeling in one of my first weekends with that group, and it was what you said, it was like a coming home. And what I realized is I had either like some vision when I was a girl, or like or a dream, or just like a really strong desire or something to community with women. It was like I knew that I knew that at some point, but I didn't remember having that vision or dream or whatever it was until when I was at one of those weekends with the women, and it just like rocked me. Like I literally had to like stabilize myself, and was like, I am coming home to something that like I know deeper in my bones than beyond even this lifetime. Like this is something that I've needed and like been craving that I didn't even realize. And so you mentioned before how when you came into the group, like you got something out of it that you didn't even know you needed or really even wanted. And that is what I think sisterhood is for all women in a lot of ways, where it's like this thing that we don't know really exists entirely until we have it and it's in front of us, and and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've been in the desert, like stocked of food and water for like a year, and then you start having it and you're like, I can't get enough of this, I need this like all the time. And I call it like a nutrient so often. I truly believe that it's something that all women need in their lives, and it's something that truly is like woven into our DNA from lifetimes where women gathered like that in intentional ways in so many times before us. So it's not a new thing, it's just that it's been forgotten and lost, and now we're living in a modern age, and it requires us to get, because we're spread out and we don't live in that tribal setting anymore. So see creating this virtual space as us adapting to the times and using the technology that's available to us to recreate what's like been bred into us. And like that's why it feels like that coming home is, it's like it literally is coming home to our true nature that we like, that we know, but maybe have over time.
Absolutely. I love how you talk about it being a nutrient, and I totally agree with you. It's like all the ancient cultures, like native cultures, had so much more connection, you know, that the tribe vibe. And in our modern culture, it's like so easy to feel so disconnected from people. And I really think it's a little bit of a macro to the micro for, you know, this is my own perspective, but for the healing that needs to happen on this planet, because people are have been a lot of times so very like disconnected, and the cattiness that we tend to attribute to women and all of that is just like an example. But for my experience of connecting with women in the way that I have in Wild Feminine Unleashed and in your work, it gives me so much hope. Like I'm like, this is like an example of what it's all about. It's like the micro of what needs to happen on a bigger scale. And yet for me, it is like the world. But I also wanted to touch on, I also wanted to touch on, one of the things that I love about Wild Feminine Unleashed is that, you were talking a little bit how people come there with, it's a safe place to talk about the challenges that we're going through and the things like that. And that's something that I think is so unique and important that I want to talk more about, because by the very nature of the way that social media works and the way that people connect online, there's this tendency to put our best face forward, to like feel the need in order to feel popular, in order to feel liked, in order to get recognition, in order to be in a conversation. It's like we have to just show our awesomeness all the time. And that is not the case in Wild Feminine Unleashed, and it's so phenomenally healing. So let's just talk more about that.
Yeah, totally. This, again, one of my favorite parts of it too, because the whole, you know, like my experience is that the more vulnerability I get to feel from somebody, the more that I love them, the more that I see their like raw, messy nature that we all think is going to make us unlovable. You know, like we think that this messy, dark part of ourselves that, oh man, if I share this is going to be the final straw. This is what's going to turn them all away. This is what's going to make them finally, like what I've known to be true all along was going to happen, where like they'll disown me, you know? And in fact, what happens in this space, because we are to share that dark stuff, we piece by piece unveil our darkest, you know, deepest, scary parts, and we just get loved for it. So there has never been a time in the history of this group, since it's been 2.5 years now almost, where it was unveiled something about herself that she was scared to and felt vulnerable about, where she got exiled. Never happened because we are there to like hold all of the mess and all of the dark stuff and show one another that you can be loved in all of that, and that it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make it doesn't anything wrong with you that you feel that way or that you did that thing, whatever it is. It's like, it's that like unconditional love that is just like there to wrap up the woman in whatever it is that she is like hurting and holding. And it's funny, like I recorded a video for because I do it too in there. It's like just because I created the space or facilitated it doesn't mean that I don't share in that way. I am not about the model of leadership where like it's holier than thou and like you keep yourself, all your shit, all your muck and murk like hidden away and don't share anything. It's like, no, I'm right there with everybody in that like intense humanness. And just last night I recorded a video that I'm going to share in the group today, and I feel really vulnerable and scared about it. And I hear a story come up in my mind where it's like be that like this is gonna be the final straw. Like they're gonna see this and they're gonna be, who is she? Who she thinks she is? I can't believe this. Like, you know, like fuck her, like whatever, you know. And I can hear that loop happen. And it's what I think all of us goes through our minds when we think about people seeing those, our shadowy nature. Absolutely. And it's not the case. And I think a lot of us have had experiences where maybe when we've exposed a part of ourselves that's really real or a little bit scary, we've been disowned by. So the whole point of this group is to not perpetuate that story that like your humanness is unlovable, like you are lovable, and that doesn't make you any less than because you are human, you know. And so that's the space that we've created and held together and really committed to as the community, is loving one another through all of that messy humanness.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about this, I almost started crying, like literally, because it's so huge and it's so healing. And you know, I have experienced in my own experience and in my own emotional body, my own healing, how powerful it is. And no matter what, each time, no matter how many times I come to the group with things that are up for me that I just want to be witnessed in and heard and you know, held on some level, no matter how many times I do it, it always brings up the fears of those past wounds that I've done so much healing on, and yet, like, you know, it's still a memory there, because some of those experiences leave, you know, scars, for lack of a better word, and yet I am every single time just like amazed and flooded with so much relief and gratitude when I'm witnessed and and it's safe and I am cared for and I'm not shunned just because I'm not perfect, because guess what? None of us are fucking perfect, right? And what an aha that is.
And what you said about the internet, like, so true, where we're sort of like given this idea to show up in this perfect way, and otherwise it's like we're just discarded, where it's like you're irrelevant if you're not, don't fit perfect vision of whatever it is that society or people for. And so I think it ingrains this I guess that we are that we're unworthy or worthless if we expose any amount of our humanness. And having a space in a person's life where they can experience humanness and still be loved for it, I think that's where some of this work transcends the virtual container and it goes out into our lives. Because once we experience how empowering it is to be loved in our human mess, in our humanness, then we can take that strength that we get from that out into the world. And it doesn't mean that we go and start sharing vulnerably with everybody. That's not necessarily a good thing to do. We got to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves and have boundaries. But it allows us to like strength of like, I have who will love me no matter what. And I can believe in myself. I can trust myself. I can take this part of me that is part of my story and doesn't define me, but makes up some of who I am, and not hold it like it's this dark, murky place. It can just be a part of us and just be like, oh, I just am in the world, this thing that was scary, but not so much. And I'm still loved, and I shared it with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it has absolutely shifted my own relationship with self, as well as been really instrumental in how I relate to other people in my life. Like in, like my relationship with my husband, for example, as I experience with women that I can show up and I can share vulnerably and I can be witnessed and I can be heard, it like builds a momentum and a strength for me, to come to this place of knowing that I can share those things that are challenging to admit. And it's huge. Yeah. So one thing I want to make sure that we talk about while I have you here is retreat stuff. So you have done a couple of retreats already, or I like to say we've done a couple of retreats because I've been right there with you making food. And yeah, let's I just feel inspired to talk a little bit about what those two have been like, and just kind of like where we're moving for the future and the next one coming up. So do you feel inspired to share a little bit about like what our first retreat was like? And I can too, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Well, you said the coming home before, which is absolutely what it felt like, was just like coming home and like oh my God, we're like all meant for each other, and that is just because of being in this space together. It's like every woman is unique and so special who's in there, and it's like whoever comes to that space is called there for a reason. It's like we're all meant there. Well, we're all meant to be, no matter who comes. For the women who are joined, the women who are there for years, women who have been there for a month, whatever. I feel like all destined for each other in some. So it felt like such a coming home like that. And all of our retreats are in and like very close to nature, where it is that we're in. So our first one, we got to be in the hills of New York, and our second one, we were in the mountains of North Carolina. And this upcoming one that we're gonna be in the desert of California, in the Badlands, outside of Barbara, in the Los Padres. And yeah, I mean, we go deep at the retreats. Like the first, like we were sort of like feeling things out of like, is this real life? Like real? Like I can touch you and you're actually like living, like holy shit, because we were just going from online to like in person time, and a lot of women didn't know each other preceding the group, so like a lot of women are very 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 close now, but most everybody had never met in person the first retreat, including yourself and myself. And that one, the first one was sort of like, we just kind of like took a lot of it. So we like did some ritual, but a lot of it was like, just like getting to relish in the time of being together and enjoying just soaking up, getting to know one another in the flesh. And then our second one was more of like, we can like really start delving a little bit more deeply. We know each other. We know this is real. We can trust the container. We've seen it in action. And so we can really, we can trust it. And so we did a little bit more ritual. And I think that we were all able to like even delve a little bit more personally into our personal healing. And yeah. Do you want to share anything about them?
Oh, totally. So one thing, just in case it cut out for you guys, because there was like this one tiny bit that cut out when she was saying our first retreat was in the Catskills in upstate New York. Like I didn't quite hear that part, even though I knew it was true. So I wanted to tell you that. And then we met in the mountains of North Carolina, and now going to the Badlands in Kayama. What's the name of the Kayaman?
Yeah. Koyama.
It's okay.
Koyama Badlands, Santa Barbara.
Right. And they're all such sacred places. And I was really thrilled because the second, well, I'll say this and then I'll come back to it. The second retreat was in a part of the world that is like home to me, that's so dear to my heart. I grew up in that region. And so it was really, really magical to come to this place that I know and love so well. That's such a sacred land. But then to be there in sisterhood with our circle was so huge. And so I'm kind of jumping around, but one of my favorite things about the first retreat was we were in an area that I had never explored before, that the land was like just humming to me with such nurturing energy. I felt like so held by the land there, by the mountains. And so the way that we were able to really like connect with earth there was really huge. And just having, one of the things I loved is we had so much time, and this has been true at both retreats, but there's like time for ritual, and there's time for connection, and then a good bit of time to just really sink into sisterhood, to like not have things so planned. And you did a really good job of striking a balance with that, because some retreats are there is so much going on, there's so much activity, and they want to make sure they keep people so busy so they don't get bored, and yet you lose the time to really connect with one another in that. And so also I will touch on, because it's like part of the thing that I cover, that our food was all really awesome. I mentioned before that I love cooking for people, but I particularly love cooking for people that can receive like the love that I'm giving, and to be in sisterhood with these women and to connect at the deep level that we do, and then to have the opportunity to nourish them, creating food for them, knowing that I'm creating it from my heart and from my love, and that it's like this physical way that they can receive from me is so incredibly huge. And I really believe, and I've heard other people state, that they can feel and they can experience that in the food too. It makes it different. It makes it unique, that they can experience sort of the magic, I like to call it, that I put into it. And we do all organic and really just high quality, well-sourced food. we don't do any gluten. And like, one of the reasons is not that like gluten's necessarily a bad thing, but it really doesn't work for me. And I know it's kind of a common thing that's not working for a lot of people. And so we just go ahead and leave that out, because I've learned how to bake really, really well without it. So we still do like yummy muffins and things like that. And
amazing goods. They're so good. And like low sugar, everything too. All low
absolutely.
sugar.
No
like,
refined sugar. And then like, you know, we use like some coconut sugar, some maple syrup, a little bit of honey, but light on those things too. And lots of yummy veggies and fruits and proteins. And of course, you know, there's each retreat, there's always some women who have some dietary restrictions, be it vegetarian or vegan, or if there's food allergies or any of that. And I know how to work with all of that from my past experience with restaurant work as well as private chefing. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's like, food to me is kind of like, I go so far as to say like everything centers around food, and yet at the same time it's like it's ideal when it's like you don't even have to think about it. It's so seamless and a flowing part of the experience, which I feel we've done a really good job with.
Yeah, and it's so central because it's our nourishment, and we, like you said, we're dancing between connecting with one another and also doing deep work, and it requires a lot of even just connecting all day, you know, like talking a lot, being in other people's space. It takes a lot of energy. And so to just know that we're so cared for through the food that you're cooking, the amazing food that you're cooking, it's so nice to be held that way and feel so deeply nourished at every single meal.
Yes. Oh, I know a couple other things I want to mention about the retreat stuff that has happened in the past and present is, okay, we've got to talk about yoga with Michelle, as well as Lauren is such an incredible space holder. And she's like, Lauren is kind of like the woman behind the scenes with a lot of Alexandra Schueler's work. And she does such a great job of pulling all these little strings and details together and making sure that we know like who's coming and kind of when they're coming and what to expect and how to support them. And she's so central and integral to the whole process. And then yoga with Michelle
coming together.
Yeah, sorry. We talked over each other. Yoga with Michelle. And I also want to mention Brooke has been at the last retreat anyways, and at this upcoming one. And what she has done with the photography sessions that she's offered to women at an amazing price for what she's doing have been so healing. Like it was mind-blowing how healing it was for me to have myself photographed by her. Like it's huge medicine.
Totally. Yeah, Brooke is another woman who's a part of the group, and she is an incredible photographer. And so she attends all the retreats and shoots photos and does photo sessions with women if they want to, as like an add to the experience. And she'll be at her upcoming one doing the same thing. And she's called Thera photo sessions, and it's like a therapeutic healing experience because it's very unlike any other. I've been photographed by a handful of people, different photographers, and she just brings such a healing energy and makes you feel so safe because it's so vulnerable being in front of the camera. So she does this really beautiful thing of just making a woman feel so seen and like captures their like core essence in a way that just like blows me away. She does almost all the photography that I post online, so almost exclusively everything I share by her. So she's there and doing photos, and it's amazing and so brilliant to how moments captured of like the group and on an individual film.
I can hardly wait for the environment that we're going to be in, which is so much more stark in certain ways, but in a really sacred, like ancient way. Like some of the images I've seen from that area are so inspiring, and to see the photographs that are going to come from this retreat, I'm just already like drooling thinking about that. And then Michelle, as I touched on with the yoga, she is so fun and has a way of getting women to move like out of their comfort zone, but in a way that's like, she somehow makes it like fun and exciting to move outside of your box and beyond your comfort zone, rather than some people are good at getting you outside of your comfort zone by pushing you, and it's uncomfortable. And I've never experienced her like pushy. She's just like inspiring. And so I love that about the yoga work that she does. And every morning, I'm not always a part of the circles, but every morning, because I'm making breakfast or cleaning or whatever, but every morning when I'm in the kitchen, looking out, seeing yoga happen, like it warms my heart. I'm like, oh my God, what life is this? Like, this is the most magical thing ever.
Yeah, because she offers such a vulnerable, like, literally like optionally stripping down to nakedness if you decide to, but it's not required, but literally like shedding layers. So it's a very ritual yoga practice, more than just like a vinyasa flow or something. It's like, it's more like restorative in nature, and it's you're walked through like a whole experiential thing. It's not just like yoga practice. So I every retreat, when I'm sitting there in the circle, there's at least one moment where I just like have to stop and just like look around at the women that like, some are half naked, some are fully clothed, everybody's just in their perfect process. And I just like start pouring tears because I'm so humbled by women just pushing their comfort zone, but also just like heart-centered practice. It's just everybody there, like so rooted in heart, and it just is overwhelmingly beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah, and the what you talked about, how, you know, some women, you know, sometimes it's naked yoga if that person chooses or not. And I was just thinking about how it's so like metaphorical but so real to realize that like there is this stripping away that's happening in the physical sometimes, you know, as well as on so many other levels. And that opportunity for that, and knowing how real that is of what's happening is just it's unbelievable. It's almost indescribable, but it's like one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so good.
Yay.
So I want to invite anyone watching this too, that like our next retreat is happening in February 9th through the 13th, and we're doing this one a little bit differently than we have in the past, where we are opening the invitation to women who want to join who are not currently in Wild Feminine Unleashed, because we are including membership with anybody who registers to join us at the retreat. So if you sign on to come, you will also get 3 months with Wild Feminine Unleashed. Yeah, if you are interested in joining us in the desert of California for some ritual and really like a deep dive into all of these things that we've been talking about in our interview, this is a perfect experience for that. And Amber will be there cooking food. Michelle will be doing yoga. We'll be overseeing all of the amazing logistics. And we already have a handful of women signed up, and we have quite a few other women that, since I opened this yesterday, have expressed signing up. So I think we're going to have a really solid group. So if you're watching this and you feel really drawn to sort of testing the waters with this sort of sisterhood experience, or you're totally like accustomed to sisterhoods and you just like want to like soak it all up, this is going to be perfect for that. And yeah, anybody is welcome, and you'll get to dive into this awesome online tribe that we've been building for 2.5 years now as well. So yeah, I just wanted to open the invitation to anybody watching this also.
I love that. I love that you're doing this. I love that you've gotten, you know, the call to open up and let more women in. And I'm so excited to meet and connect with some of the sisters who have been in the group for a while, and some of them I've met before, and some of them I've been connecting with in the group but I haven't met yet. And then also to connect with the new women that come into Wild Feminine Unleashed as they are coming to this this gathering. It's so exciting for me. Like, my heart is already expanding just imagining it. So Yeah, big stuff. And if you're watching this and your heart says yes, like I super hope I get to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, and if you're interested, you can just go to my website, and if you go to the Work With Me tab at the top, there will be a drop down, and you'll see the retreat is called Journey into the Wild Woman's Den, because we're really like doing a dive internally, like tend to our internal landscape in just like an epic environment that we'll be in, and doing it all in the safety of the container of sisterhood. So alexandraschueler.com to find all the details for that.
Perfect. And when I share this video, I'll make sure and put that link there with it, so it's super easy for folks to click on it if they're feeling the call. Yay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been like the best to muse about all of this stuff, and just, I mean, you know, this is one of my favorite subjects now, largely because you're in my life and you've like been so transformational.
I love you so much. Such an honor to be here and to talk about like the theme of sisterhood and of it, and so amazing to be able to share with you and opportunities to provide women to be a part of all of this. And even if not participating in what we're talking about here, finding what resonates for them, because I think so much of this is about finding like what experience resonates for you. It doesn't have to be my retreat. It doesn't have to be our group. It could be anything, but just sort of like, if I could do anything but just like spark, like ignite the spark for a woman of sisterhood and seeking it out in her life in whatever way capacity feels good for her, like that's the most that I could ask. So yeah, just wanted to add that little piece.
Absolutely. Such a good and powerful reminder. All right, babe. Well, thank you again. And thank you all for joining us and tuning in today. Bye.